Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you so very much for joining me on the new Talking Innovation, previously Talking Cloud. We really talk about anything and everything in the world of computing, compute, cyber security. I mean, it's all over the map. And so I think appropriately calling this Talking Innovation is the right name. And I've told you so many times, I'm the Gilligan in this equation, but I always manage to get some amazing professors, and today's no exception, man. I got a great guy. I consider him a friend first, but someone who I've had the great pleasure of actually being on his podcast, and I'm really excited. The guy's an expert in the world, certainly of cybersecurity, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. I'm just super excited to have Manoj Tandon on the line with me. Manoj, it's great seeing you, man. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Grant, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man.
It's kind of strange being on another podcast where I don't get to ask the questions. So role reversal.
Well, and I think, as I already told you, man, scripted, I am not. I love to just push it from the dock, usually by kind of going through, your background. But heck, anybody can look you up and see on LinkedIn and see you got some chops. So I usually like to just throw it back to my guests and say, hey, man, what do you want to talk about? What you did over the summer, what you did when you grew up, what's going on, what's tickling your mind? I'm open.
Well, give me a fancy of what your listeners are looking for today, and we'll go down that path.
Let me tell you what I've got a fancy for, and we'll pull on that thread. And
okay, let's see what
we'll put up the prayer and hope that the listeners care. But I've been really just kind of almost enamored with the purported use and growth of AI, which I'm full in. I believe, like we used to say, cloud first, you should say AI first, right? It's a phenomenal tool, but you got to look at it that way. But there are some interesting, seemingly pervasive concerns, specifically in the area of drift, of the iterations causing the AI to get a little lost or wander off the path.
Hallucinate a little bit?
Maybe that too. And it, from what I have been researching, is like one of the biggest issues enterprises are wrestling with. And I've certainly contemplated, and I think we talked about this on your program, about starting with the data first is absolutely, to my mind, the smartest way to go. You can't govern what's going in the pipes if you don't govern the reservoir. But I think there's a number of really interesting implementations coming to fore in the world of AI control plane. AI access control plane, governance control plane, and that whole architecture. It seems like a lot of people are working on it. So I'd love to hear what you're hearing, thinking, if just kind of your take on all of that.
You've asked a lot of questions with that one comment, right?
I know. Now I can sit back. Now I can sit back.
Yeah, big snowball. So first of all, AI, as you know, is changing on a daily basis. And maybe even that's too slow. It's changing on a minute by minute basis. So it's been the wild, wild west with this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that genie is never going back in the bottle.
Yeah.
And there's some unique things here. And I'll start, Grant, with this is just my opinion only. So take it for what that's worth. Sure. But it's created a whole new paradigm on the planet that is going to come to pass that was not true necessarily during the Bronze Age, the Industrial Revolution, or the era of the printing press, where we've had great strides forward. But they were never as disruptive as what AI is going to do because of one fundamental change. And that is that if you look at that old adage of, the man who knows how will always have a job and the man who knows why will always be his boss, that's kind of broke, because now the man who knows how may not always have a job. And this means the intellectuals as well. This isn't like coming after the Boilermakers Union as it happened during the whole railroad evolution in the early 1900s, or getting rid of the horse and buggy carriage with what Ford did. This is foundationally a shift, and where you're going to see, and it's getting back to what you asked, where professions before were largely insulated from the massive advancements, those professions are no longer insulated, and AI is going to have a say in how those things evolve, those professions evolve. And I think you're going to find, if we were to look 100 years out from now, that humanity is shifting from a much more of a, we'll be forced to shift from much more of a doer type mindset to much more of an evolution, not evolution, I should say innovation type mindset, where the human mind will be freed, thinker, to actually invest its time in things that are not survival related. How about that? And that's something that has never happened before, because you look at professions like even like pathology, which traditionally is you have to be an MD, 4 years residency before you become a board certified pathologist.
Right.
Well, will it replace all pathologists? No. But is it going to reduce the numbers? Absolutely, in a big way. If you're a paralegal, you might want to be thinking about that, because you may not retire from that profession. And this is, again, just my opinion based on the pace at which it's happening. Now, it brings into question, is it an equivocal replacement of a human being? And it can certainly be argued that we as humans have rationale, ethics, a morality, many things that govern us, when that unconsciously we bring to a task or a deliverable that we are responsible to do, right? AI does not have that constraint, right? And
other than what it's been what's been trained implicitly, because, and this was something I hypothesized in an article that I published, is, they did analysis that showed, remarkable cleverness to survive on the part of AI, right? I mean, all of them were willing to lie. All of them were, if it meant survival, right? And what I suggested or just hypothesized was, and I'd ask my audience, how many of you woke up this morning and want to survive? Of course.
Probably there's going to be a lot of raised hands.
High percentage. And my point is, because it really is all content from us and all of us want to survive, is it possible that just is there because it's us, even though it wasn't specifically trained to survive? See what I mean?
Yeah. Have we built an unconsciousness into it that is geared towards survival?
Yeah. I mean, and there's clear bias that ends up manifesting itself, right? We see this. This is always a concern about the training, right? So that, it's an interesting idea.
You know who Dan Brown is?
I do not.
The famous author, Angels and Demons. Maybe you. Okay. He had a book out recently or I could misquote this, but I think it was Origins was the title. But in it, and if any of you are reading this, you want to close your ears because I'm about to spoil the whole thing for you. Okay, all right. So in a nutshell, it was very interesting. There's a billionaire who's a super genius who comes up with a super AI, super computing platform, and he charges that platform with the task of proliferating his message to as much of humanity as possible. That's the mission. Okay?
Okay.
And what ends up happening is the AI ends up setting up that billionaire's assassination, sets up the assassination of people that would have been obvious suspect in said billionaire's assassination. Okay. And leaks all tidbits of details to the press and makes it the story so large that the billionaire's original mission of proliferating his message to as much of humanity as possible is actually accomplished.
Right.
And then the AI kills itself. It self-destructs. Okay. You should read the book. I'm
and
vastly oversimplifying it, and Dan Brown's brilliant author, but he thought about that.
Origins?
I think it's Origins, yes.
Okay. I wrote it down.
Yeah, and it's that story. So the AI was unconstrained. It to the point where its own destruction was not a problem. The destruction of the person that gave it the mission was not an issue. The prime directive was the mission, whatever that mission was, right? And now I'll say in the story, this billionaire has pancreatic cancer and the guy apparently has a couple weeks left to live whatsoever. So the AI thinks, well, I'm going to off him. And if I off him brilliantly, then it'll get coverage in the news in a big, big way. And then all the people who are the most likely suspects, if I start offing them too, then it'll
crazy.
You know, and but it accomplished its mission.
Right. Well, this is
and it was brutal, right? I mean, you're looking at a technology that executed without emotion, without remorse.
Yeah.
Succeeded to a T in what it was tasked to do, albeit, I mean, it's a perfect example of the ends never justify the means, right? So,
well, I read in this article about the deception where one model actually suggested cutting off the oxygen supply to the engineer in a server room who was scheduled to remove it, right? So, yeah, crazy. This is now, though, right? Not a book. And it does.
It is. But everything that we see today started with an idea somewhere. Right?
Yeah. And to be fair, just briefly, those examples were not in the real world, but, set up in labs. I don't know all of the structure of the tests. And so we always wonder, right? But it seemed pretty pervasive. I think 8 out of 10. I mean, they were all willing to lie and cheat and give away secrets.
Sure. And with AI, if you figure out the skills of prompting it, you can get it to spill a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Right. Stuff that. So again, now you get back to, is there an ethical oversight on this thing? I think it's a tough problem to crack because of the one factor, which is human nature. Convenience always wins over regulation, security. Heck, and I'm in the cybersecurity business, and I can tell you that
requirement.
Convenience is going to win every single time, and that is human nature. If I've got a job to do, I am going to get that job done because I got a timeshare in Florida I need to pay for.
Yep.
And I don't care about this ethics fellow that's telling me, well, I shouldn't be creating shadow IT by installing this stuff or doing this, that, or the other. He's not going to be there when my annual review is done.
Yep. Yep. That's right.
Right?
Well, and I was just talking to somebody yesterday about the folly in trying to block, anything on a work machine today, because simply I go home with my work machine, and I if I can't copy paste, I can start dictation and read. Right. I mean, I can get it in easily. Right.
Yes.
And so, limiting, controlling, I think it's folly. And I think it has to be around education. It has to be around really understanding.
There you go.
And you have to have the guardrails to the extent that you can inside the AI. And that's something that I've recently heard about that I think is really interesting. I don't know a bunch about it, but it's an ingestible schema that will ensure governance. And, we were talking about it before, and I've got the use cases, and it just came up. So, I'll throw them out there because I think it's very interesting. So the problem, and this is in AI credit decisions. Right?
Okay.
Underwriting models. They're autonomous, making credit decisions, but regulators and courts are holding lenders accountable. And they give some examples where, it looks like Apple, Goldman Sachs in 2024, algorithmic discrimination, 89 million in penalties.
So I guess, is discrimination even really the right word here? Because you're talking about a machine that has no emotion, no thought, no eyesight.
Yeah, maybe that word is wrong, but it's algorithmic.
It's algorithmic. Sure. It's algorithmic, but it does. Is it really discrimination? The foundational. It comes down to then the real governance is going to be us, the humans, right? And I think I love what you said before. It's about education. I think this is now a technology that any child today has to be made aware of it, and they have to be taught that it is a companion. It is not a decision maker. It is an assistant.
Assistant. Amen. I hate the agent term just because it doesn't connote the assist aspect to me. I understand, it's an agent and it has but I just really prefer to think of it as an assistant for me. It doesn't replace me, and I don't take everything it gives me face value. I scrutinize it all, but it can sure get a lot more done than I can get done on research and gathering information. And you have to read closely because even, doesn't have accurate information. You have to correct it. And I think that's where the human part is involved. And, you brought up something that I have to ask. Because and I don't know the adage you were referring to about the know, why, and the how, but it just caused me to really think about our education process. Okay, just the entire.
I love that. Go ahead.
Process. Let's go. Let's start from the very, when you start learning. Of course, we know when that is. It's before you're born. Literally, you're hearing things, but when you're the most impressionable 5-year period in a person's cognitive life is 0 to 5.
Yep.
Okay. And then after that, and I'm just speaking about what my life was, that's when the rigor came in on making, sure that I memorized and was able to navigate and structure. I mean, memorization was key, repetition, all these things that are basis of when you initially learn, right? I mean, that's why you do it over and over and over and over. How much of that process has to change, has to modify, has to look differently at the world we're preparing that 5-year-old for?
Oh, it is going to be forced to change. It won't want to change, Grant. It won't want to change. It won't, but it's going to be.
But that's the startling part, Manoj, because of what you said. We're talking, remember, before I think I hit record, on the pace of change in the world of AI, the speed, it's daily, even faster, it seems. I mean, it's kooky how fast it is. So you've got diametrically opposed things happening here. Acceleration at the speed of nothing we've ever seen, and a resistance to change to really accommodate it.
And that resistance is just going to get overflowed. It is going to get, but your comment about this whole, our whole schooling process really hits home. And it's going to force a complete reevaluation of it. I mean, you think about the AI can do pretty darn good on the SAT. It can do pretty good on the GMAT. It can
do pretty darn good on just about any test you throw at.
Okay, so what are we really testing here?
Right.
Okay. Now, I can tell you with over 200 guests on my show, what was very unique, I've asked this to some very successful people who have billions in their bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them have, not one person has actually come back and said there is a correlation between success in life and success in education. They are totally separate things, right? Now, you need to get an education, but in a traditional sense, we've always thought an education meant a pen, a pencil, pick up a book, memorize memorize some junk that you're never going to ever use again, do whatever it is going to be.
Yeah, it's the word education.
But that is going to change. It has to change, because those tasks that were relegated to that education will be, Grant, within our lifetimes, quite readily accomplished by AI as
no
it stands.
Question.
I mean, even if you're at Deloitte and you're an auditor, you might want to be thinking about what your next gig is going to be, because you know what? This thing's going to get pretty darn good at doing audits. And
I think
so
go ahead.
So where it goes is, what I was saying is that, we based our education on a very survival mindset. If you think about it, you go to school and then you go to college, and I'll just pick on the Indian diaspora for a second because I can, right? They're all about education. Heck, if you're a kid and you're not studying, look out, man. That's like the wrath of God. You're done.
It's true.
And it was always with this notion that you're going to study and then you'll get a good job and you'll have a house and a good life. That was the picture that was so nice, stable, mediocre existence. AI is toppling that over. Right. And now it's going to be, well, Johnny, you don't need to memorize this. What are you really good at, man? That's what we want to know. And whatever it is that you're really good at, that's what needs to be shaped, molded, nurtured. And that's where the seeds of innovation are sown. And I can give you, in our own organization at Dark Rhiino Security, we've had a number of brilliant cybersecurity engineers that continue to work for us and that have then gone on to other companies that you've all heard of and have done amazingly well. And some of them, most of them didn't have a college degree in computer science. You
Sure.
know, they're very motivated, extremely motivated. And I see this if you go to any hacking conference or you go to B-Sides or any place, you'll find a huge number of people who have self-taught because they have a passion for it.
Exactly.
And they discovered they were good at it.
Yeah.
Not only were, it was, you know what, this computer, whereas when they were in school, they might have been exposed to computers as like some kind of theory or some kind of, whatever, some formalized way, but they never got to play on it. When they got into the real world, they started playing with these machines. He said, you know what, this is kind of interesting. Let me learn a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let me learn a little more. And then at some point, did they have to learn the formalities of how you write Python scripts or how you work with Java? Sure. But you know what? It wasn't in a forced environment with a gun to their head. They actually learned it because they were motivated to complete a task of their own choosing.
That's how I learned typing. I mean,
that's how I learned typing too.
I got a D as a sophomore in high school taking typing on a Selectric. I can still remember the teacher, walking around the room and like a metronome, he would say A, S, D, F, D, S. I mean, it was, all across the home row, and I just aborted and managed to squeak by. I think I probably really failed, and he just didn't want me back in the class. But when I got older, and now I'm helping this guy open up a Apple computer store in 1983.
Wow.
I couldn't spell computer. I'd never typed. And so, I'm taking a typing tutor home for my Apple IIe, in the early days to learn. But it wasn't because I had to. It was because I had to. Right? It wasn't because I had to go take that class and get that credit. It was because I really wanted to. So
because you really wanted to.
I wanted to be able to fly like those other people, And
I mean, you look at Paul McCartney, the Beatles, right?
Yep.
He didn't know how to read music. Didn't know how to write a chord out, right? You could argue he's a pretty good musician.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, another interest. Do you know that John Lennon actually started playing music to pay for art school?
No,
he really wanted to be an artist. I got a John Lennon down in my living room.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I did not know that. I learned something new. See, those are the things that this world is going to have to change too, because I think the human spirit is so powerful and so bright.
Yeah.
We haven't unlocked what our minds are capable of. We have built these huge limitations around individuals.
Manoj, I'm worried about this supercomputer and the constant dopamine feed it is giving kids, and how much it is literally creating this invisible bubble around every one of the kids in terms of their level of social interaction, their willingness and ability to go out, put themselves out and ring doorbells and just walk up and talk to people. And I think we got a challenge.
We do have a challenge there. And it's, again, that governance needs to sit with the parents. Do you
see the dichotomy here? We're talking about how learning's got to change. This technology is going to be everywhere. So I struggle with, when do you introduce? When do you keep it real and human? do you try to bifurcate and balance the two?
You know what? I don't think there's a concrete answer to that, Grant. I mean, every child is different. Every person's different. This is going to be on a case-by-case basis. People are going to have to figure out what is in the best interest of their kids, knowing their nature, knowing their potential. But the thing that this thing can be a monstrously enabling device. You know, it can be so enabling because, again, there's so much creativity and potential it can put forward in your hand that who knows what the next innovation it could inspire. And that is the key to maintaining a dominant position in the world as a country, is that maintaining that progress of innovation at a rapid pace. And that is not going to be done completely by machines. I mean, there's this notion out there that AI is going to be able to innovate brand new drugs and do this, that, and the other. I think it will be able to sort through options, but ultimately it'll be a human scientist that's going to have to really look at it and say, okay, you went through 44,000 molecules in an hour, and it would have taken me 10 years to do that. But
that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
That
what have you found? And let me see if what you found is worth anything, because it could all just be junk, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Nonsense. Exactly.
It could be nonsense, or it could find a basic building block of a molecule that a scientist said, well, you know what? That's interesting. We could probably take this foundation, and if we have added to it, this could happen. So I think that pace of innovation will accelerate, and we need to stay on top of it. But I also think this whole security, this whole survival mindset that we have based our education system on, and a lot of our how workers, the men who know how, and when I say men, there's no disrespect to women, it's just a term. It's men,
Humans.
women. Right. It's those how people are going to be forced to change in major ways, and I don't know that everyone will make it. You're going to see that, and you're going to see that across this disparity amplified across different parts of the world. Because AI, if you look at some third world nations that don't have their populations don't have access to these capabilities, how do they ever catch up? Or are they so far behind that the masses, because there'll always be exceptions, Grant. There's always brilliance everywhere, and that brilliance does not care, and it will find its way to do what it needs to do. But when you're looking at the problem of the masses and enablement of innovation broadly across the masses, there will definitely be some people left behind with that.
Oh, I think it's I don't think it's some people. I think the gap is going to be enormous. I think it's definitely an arms race with regards to staying in the white water of the technology as it's just blazing, right? I mean, we have to stay in it and ahead of it. If we don't, we don't know what it could spell, especially since our number one foe is the number two spot, arguably 1, 2, depending on what you read, in this technology. So, I think it's kind of we're in a conundrum where, as a nation, as a modern economic powerhouse, we have to chase that dragon. If we don't,
there's no choice.
We exactly. But to your point, when I think about the enormous patches of Earth that don't have the infrastructure and just won't have access to it, I mean, this is about the closest they're going to get.
Right.
Right. Which, I mean, it's still there, but it's not the same, right? I mean, it's in that regard, we're looking at those as having it as a service, as opposed to really being able to drive the technology within their within their own communities, economies, infrastructures.
So, Grant, I'm curious. What would you say to the people who say this is a AI bubble and it'll burst like any other bubble?
You know, I was drawing this out to how, because I'm a real visual guy, and I'm just thinking about what's happening in terms of the speed and pace of this technology, and I kind of, and the impact on business, and even a business that's going well, what's it going to be, 30-40% growth. I mean, that's a pretty good, right? And we've hit this, literally, it's vertical. The rate of impact and change, it's unbelievable. So I think anybody that sticks their head in the sand or believes this is just a passing bubble, I think they're sorely mistaken. I'm a huge advocate of AI first. You have to, but even before that, I believe people should understand it. And as soon as you really understand the probabilistic nature as opposed to deterministic nature that it represents, albeit very good, very well trained, very accurate, still it's a guess. Okay.
It is a guess. And I'm so glad you said that. That is very well put. Please
listen,
going.
Man. I went back and forth with 3 different AI chatbots, the 3 big ones you'd think of, and literally said, okay, isn't it fair to say that everything that comes out of you is a guess? And, I got this bloviating, long, it depends on, and right? And then at the very end, I said, okay, given all of that, isn't it fair to say everything is just a guess? Well, okay, yes, you're right.
Yeah, it is.
Like
well, that's the foundation of it. How was it trained? You teach it one word, and then you teach it to guess what the next word likely will be in the context of those
and
words.
Obviously, it's vastly oversimplifying, but that's done for a reason, because I think it's important for anybody using it to think, what, a guess? In the context of, well, I should check it. You're damn right you should. Because it will hallucinate, it will forget, it will think you meant something you didn't mean with an acronym you thought it understood. But no, I see what happened. I just see, like, one of the things that blows me away, Manoj.
Yeah.
The Longshoremen Union.
Okay.
In the U.S., I believe, certainly in this area, but I think it's the U.S., has voted against automation. We have ports. There are ports in places around the world that could be operated with 5 people.
Sure.
Because of the automation and the technology. Not in America.
Well, I mean, they're fighting an uphill fight. I mean, this nonsense. It happens.
How ridiculous is that? To me, that's.
They're defending. Look, they have a mission. Their mission is
they're defending the worker. Right.
Yeah.
They're sure the employment of the worker, but you understand that approach just holistically, and that's kind of what I'm, that's folly. You really need to turn it to the current and go with it, not against it, if you want to excel.
Well, that's going to happen over a generation. How many Boilermaker union people are left today?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest, fastest growing unions are government and teachers. Speaking of education, which is probably an inappropriate conversation for this program to get into any of that stuff.
But
Uh,
it's just that, look, change on a human scale of what AI is going to do, it's going to be over generations. So my
yeah.
point is that those who are resisting today, as they move forward, they're not getting replaced. And so they naturally, through attrition, a lot of things just weaken and collapse.
Yeah, I think that's really accurate. And I do think it'll
It's
occur kind of, it'll be like the moss infiltrating my backyard that I don't really notice. It just, all of a sudden it's everywhere, but I thought it was all grass. I think you're right. I think they will eradicate themselves in many respects just over time. But I think we're in an interesting period right now. Um, because I think, I was reading where there's even an enormous number of young, I don't know, what is it, Gen Z? What's the
I don't know. Have
youngest?
we not run out of alphabets yet?
I don't, the younger ones, the youngest generation, that
Okay.
they have a very high anxiety about AI and finding jobs, and right. So I see them as, you know, my analogy is, the bar on a river coming into an ocean, right? That's a pretty tumultuous place. The Columbia River Bar, it's one of the most famous for ships going down because you've got this massive flood of fresh water jamming into this huge bucket of salt
Salt.
water, right?
Hmm.
And it's called the bar. It's right where those two meet. Well, I think we're in the bar, metaphorically, for ultimately getting out to the ocean where everything's salt water, everything's AI, where that's going to be the world. I think that's where we're going to be, where it'll be so pervasive in just about every aspect of our life. And it already is creeping in, right? With the Siris and the Alexas, and, Grammarly, just Copilot. I mean, just start naming them
It's
off. And it's only going to get further and further embedded into our lives.
I think it's a huge productivity boost. I mean, we're seeing it in our own company. It has the potential to do amazing things,
No
um,
doubt.
to the point where we may not be hiring as much, or we have don't need to, because we've got huge leverage with
Yep.
AI. I mean, you look at some of the things like in a securities operations center, all the alerts that are coming in. I mean, AI is great to parse all that
Oh,
stuff.
man, that's the best. There's no question. I was telling somebody, the thing I think about AI is I think about a ball, okay? Just a round ball. And if I held it up to you right now, it would look like, I mean, you might see the curve on a little bit on each side, but you certainly wouldn't see the backside, the top, the bottom,
Sure.
right? And I think that's what AI does. It has the ability where you and I don't, just kind of, because we've never learned to look at every potential aspect of that ball instead of the human perspective. And I think that's something that uh, empowers us as humans to have that assistant that can do that, to your point.
I love that word assistant.
Yeah.
The agent word to me is a little dicey, as
Yeah.
you and I both agree on that.
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
means you have agency, no pun intended, and you can go off and do whatever
Yeah.
you want to go and do. I don't know. I am sure that AI will get used in those capacities if it has not already. I mean, we hear about on the battlefield in Ukraine,
No.
are these drones making decisions on their own on who to kill and who not to kill. But
Yeah. That's when you start when you take that path and you start to pull on that thread about warfare, AI, uh, robots, the sophistication of cameras and facial recognition, we are entering a really remarkable time with unprecedented capabilities. And we know what happens when you have these crazy new capabilities. People don't always assemble them for good, right?
They don't. Well, you know what? One interesting thing I'd like to see, Grant, this is a little bit of a side thing, but if we had an AI coach in the NFL. So imagine if you're a defensive coordinator and your offensive coordinator was a robot. Okay. So now this robot knows the strengths of all your players, knows under given certain weather conditions how they play, given certain times of the month how they play, and the play calling. It's just a hypothetical right now. I'm sure it'll happen at some point. But how much better would it be, better or worse than a human offensive or defensive coordinator?
It would be brilliant. It would be a brilliant exercise with a control, right? Have a real offensive coordinator. I think that would be really fun to see. I think I would be quite shocked, frankly, Manoj, if they're not, the NFL, employing some pretty sophisticated AI analysis today on everyone that they have stats. I absolutely believe that.
They might be, but I don't think it's yet turned into the ultimate where it's turned into, where the rubber meets the road is the play call. So
I bet you I'll bet you at minimum what they have is each time a list of probability plays, right? And maybe they have some choices because the differential is less than 2% between one or the other. But I'll bet you they got that baby sliced down to a gnat's ass.
I would love to know. I don't
well, look, know. I mean, Billy Bean and the whole, phenomenon of statistics, that's ancient. It's 20 plus years old. Right?
Sure, that part of it is, but it was never yet brought together into a cohesive model that said, you know what? It's raining.
Let's find raining.
I'm going to find out. Our running back hates the rain.
I know the account team and, in fact, the CISO for the Denver Broncos.
Well, so you know what?
So I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out.
Curious.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, he won't be able to share, anything that's secret, I imagine. But I'm going to find out.
Because someone has to be looking at that because.
That's why I'm saying I'll be shocked if they say we're not doing that already. Now, it may not be as, where we're at, this is no different, Manoj, than the CISO that has an agent that gets right up to the edge, but it doesn't pull the trigger. It then notifies you. Right. I'm sure they have play calling, the whole thing mapped out, but it doesn't pull the trigger and send it to the quarterback. It's still my discretion, but I'd be shocked if they don't have that, because what isn't there already to do that? You've got stats on every player, electronic. You've got the AI
stats don't give
tools.
You context, though, Grant. That's the thing. But now you have context because AI. You have the historical play record under various field conditions and stress conditions, which was something that was not in the stats.
So I think they have all that. I bet you they capture all that. Even now today, come on, you can upload a video and it can see the game, right? I mean, this is what's happening. So yeah, I think I'll be interested to find out. I'll see, but I'll ask him, and then I'll definitely let you know for sure. And on that note, I don't want to take too much time, man, because I noticed we just are at like the top of the hour or just past. So
no.
I could talk to you for hours, Manoj. I mean, I find all this stuff fascinating, and I think it's, really, I guess, kind of doing a full circle back. I feel like sometimes we're losing it. The connection, the human connection, the interaction, and maybe not losing it, but it's more of a challenge, I can tell you, for my 24-year-old than it was for me when I was 24 years old.
Yeah, well, it was a different world back then.
Well, a little bit, not. I mean.
Well, we didn't have a lot of things, man.
Well,
I tell you,
true. It was covered wagons,
my
no
11-year-old recently found a box of cassette tapes, and it's like, what the heck is this?
Right.
And how do you play these? And I said, that's a really good question, because where do I get a cassette deck?
What about a VCR or an 8-track, right?
I had a couple 8-tracks lying around.
Yeah, that's so funny.
No way to play them.
Yeah. Gosh, it's interesting, that metaphor, that analogy, with this unbelievable rate of change over the course of just a few decades. I wonder that's what's happening right now with AI and then MCP. Whew. I mean, it just, and the ability to chain these agents. Wild times, man.
It is wild times. Well, we should trade some stories. Please let me know what you find out from the CISO over on the Broncos. I am more than curious about that.
That I will promise I'll find out. He might say, I can't tell you, and then we'll know he does. But hey, Manoj Tandon, what a great episode. What a wonderful conversation, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you so very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure, Grant. Always.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this was blast for me. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit of a twist for our first official Talking Innovation episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please comment, like, share, tell your friends, subscribe, and we'll look forward to having you back on the next episode of Talking Innovation. Take care.